Welcome to Jermaine_TV, and let's dive into another story. Lietuviškos pasakos, Eglė Žalčių karalienė. Lithuanian fairy tales. Eglė, queen of the sea serpents. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived an old man and his wife. They had 12 sons and 3 daughters. The youngest was named Eglė. One summer evening, all 3 sisters went bathing. After splashing around and washing, they returned to shore to dress. Suddenly, the youngest sees a sea serpent coiled in the sleeve of her blouse. What to do? The oldest sister grabbed a stick and was ready to drive the serpent away, but he turned to the youngest and began speaking in a human voice. "Dear Eglė," he says, "give me your word that you will marry me, and I will leave peaceably." Eglė began crying. After all, how can she marry a sea serpent? Then she spoke up angrily. "Give me back my blouse and go back unhurt where you came from." But the sea serpent didn't budge. "Give me your word," says he, "that you will marry me and I will leave peaceably." "Oh, go ahead and promise, little Eglė. You don't really believe you'll have to marry him," said the oldest sister scornfully. After returning home, they forgot about the sea serpent. 3 days went by. They hear a commotion in the yard. They look. A throng of sea serpents are slithering into their yard. Frightened, they watch the serpents swarm towards their house, climb and wriggle up its sides, coil around the porch post. The matchmakers simply barge into the house and negotiate with the older sisters and the young bride. At first, the parents tried to brush them off. They can't believe their ears. But eventually, with such a teeming throng of serpents, they are forced to agree that they will give away their youngest and prettiest daughter. However, secretly, they do not intend to give in. They tell the serpents to wait a bit. They go to an old neighbor and tell her the whole story. She says, "It's easy to fool a serpent. Instead of your daughter, give them a goose and tell the messengers to leave." That's what they did. They dressed up a white goose and the matchmakers set out with it. Soon they heard a cuckoo in a birch.
"Cuckoo, cuckoo, they fooled you. Instead of the bride, they gave you a white goose. Cuckoo, cuckoo."
The sea serpents returned and angrily threw out the goose and demanded the bride. The parents, advised by the old neighbor, dressed up and handed over a white female sheep. As they pass by, the cuckoo again sings out,
"Cuckoo, cuckoo, they fooled you. Instead of the bride, they gave you a white female sheep. Cuckoo, cuckoo."
The sea serpents returned, hissing, and again demanded the bride. This time, they gave them a white cow, but the cuckoo alerted them once again, and they returned, wrathful, threatening drought and famine if they do not honor the given word. The family mourned Eglė, cried over her, and gave her away to the sea serpents. As they escort Eglė, the cuckoo calls by the wayside,
"Bride, make haste. The groom awaits his dear bride."
Finally, Eglė and her whole escort reached the seashore. There she met a handsome young man who was awaiting her. He said he was the self-same sea serpent who had crawled into her blouse sleeve. They all crossed over to a nearby island, where they descended underground, below sea level, to the beautiful castle of the sea serpent. Here they feasted. 3 weeks they drank, danced, and made merry. In the castle of the sea serpent, there was an abundance of everything, and soon Eglė settled down, became happy, and soon forgot her home. 9 years went by, and Eglė had 3 sons, Žaltys, Žaltys, Bergis, and 1 daughter, Trebule. She was the youngest. One day, while playing, the oldest son asked Eglė,
"Mother, where do your parents live? Let's visit them someday."
And then it all came back to her. Her parents, brothers, sisters, and all her relatives. And a longing grew in her to see how they were doing. Are they healthy? Are they still alive? Or perhaps they are dead? And so she yearns to go to see her home. So many years she has been away, hasn't seen her family. She misses them terribly. But Žaltys doesn't even want to listen.
"All right," he says. "I'll let you go visit them, but first spin this tuft of silk into thread." And he showed her a spinning wheel.
Eglė began spinning. She worked day and night. She span and span, but the tuft of silk did not get any smaller. She realized that this must be a trick. The tuft of the silk must be enchanted. You could spin all you like, but would never finish spinning into thread. So Eglė went to an old woman who lived nearby, a sorceress and enchantress. Arriving, she begins to complain. "Dear mother, dear heart, teach me how to spin this tuft of silk into thread."
Throw it into fire.
She says,
Otherwise, you'll never finish spinning it.
Upon returning, Eglė threw the tuft into the oven, in which the fire had been lit for baking. The tuft of silk immediately fell away, and Eglė saw the distaff, which was actually a wriggling toad. It was the toad that had been supplying the unending tuft of silk she had tried to spin. Now, Eglė was able to finish her task, and once again, she begs the sea serpent to let her visit her parents for a few days. Now, her husband pulled out a pair of iron shoes from under a bench and said,
"You can leave when you wear these out."
Putting on the shoes, she began walking, stepping, scraping them across the tiles, against the stones, wherever. But the shoes are thick, hard, and are not even beginning to wear out. Eglė could step all she likes. They will last a lifetime. Again, she goes to the old woman for advice. The old woman teaches her,
Take the shoes to the blacksmith and ask him to heat them up in the forge.
That's what she did. The shoes were heated up very well, and Eglė was able to wear them out in 3 days. Having worn them through, again she begs her husband to let her go visit her parents.
"All right,"
says the serpent.
"but first at least you have to bake them a cake. What else will you give the children of your brothers and other relatives as a homecoming present?"
But he ordered that all the cookware be hidden, so Eglė could not possibly bake anything. Eglė tries to figure out how to fetch water without a pail, and how to mix dough without a bowl. Again, she drags herself to the old woman. The old woman says,
Spread sourdough on a sieve, then use the sieve to fetch the water and to mix the dough.
That's what Eglė did. She mixed the dough, baked it, and so she had a cake. Now she bid farewell to her husband and left for home with her children. The serpent, also known as Žilvinas, accompanied them, carried them across the sea, and told them not to be gone for more than 9 days.
"When you return,"
he he says.
Come alone with the children, and standing on the seashore, call me this way. O Žilvinas, dear Žilvinas, if you're alive, milky foam. If you're not, bloody foam. And if you see milky foam coming toward you on the sea,
he says,
then you would know that I am still alive. But if you see bloody foam, you will know that I have died. And you, children, tell no one how to call me.
So saying, he bid them all farewell and wished them a happy sojourn and a happy return. When Eglė arrived at the homestead, there was great happiness. The whole family, all their relatives, and all their neighbors gathered to see her. They all asked how it had been living with the sea serpent. She talked and talked. Everyone wanted to entertain her, to make her feel at home, and she didn't even notice when 9 days flew by. Meanwhile, her brothers, sisters, and parents were trying to figure out what to do so she wouldn't have to leave. And they decided they would force the children to tell them how their mother would call her husband at the shore of the sea, and then they would return to the shore, call him, and kill him. Having decided, they first called Eglė's oldest son Žaltys to the forest. They surrounded him and began to question him, but he pretended to know nothing. They beat him with switches, but to no avail. As they let him go, they warned him not to say anything about it to his mother. The second day they took Wasis, then Burgess, but could get no information from them. Finally, they lured Eglė's youngest Drabule into the woods. At first she too said nothing, but when she saw the switches sticking out from under their coats, she told them everything. Then, all 12 brothers took their scythes and left for shore. Standing on the shore, they begin to call.
O Žilvinas, dear Žilvinas, if you're alive, milky foam. If you're not, bloody foam.
The minute he swam up, all the men immediately attacked him and cut him dead. When they returned home, they didn't tell Eglė anything about what they had done. The 9 days went by. Eglė bid farewell to everyone, went to the seashore, and began to call. O Žilvinas, dear Žilvinas, if you're alive, milky foam. If you're not, bloody foam. The glittering sea welled up from its very depths, and Eglė saw coming towards her, heaving, wave upon wave crowned bloody foam. And she heard her husband's voice.
Your 12 brothers cut me to death with their scythes. Drabule, our most beloved little daughter, betrayed my watchword.
Overcome with sorrow, Eglė began to cry, and turning to her children, said,
Who will meet us now in this dark night? We have no home.
To Drabule she said,
Turn into aspen, tremble day and night. The rain will wash your dear little face. The wind will comb your tresses.
To her son she said,
Dear sons, stand by my side as strong trees. I, your poor mother, will be a dark, gloomy fir in your midst.
It was as she said, and now the oak, ash, and birch are the strongest among all trees, while the aspen to this day trembles at the smallest breath of wind. She trembles because she trembled before her uncles, betraying her true father and mother. And the waves of the sea washed ashore at her feet, forever and ever. This concludes our story. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.